Yes. Thank you, Paul and Alex, so much for this first 35 minutes. I really enjoyed it. I hope you do as well. If you want to go on watching the race, we have prepared a second live stream on YouTube. If you like, go on. Watch it parallel, probably. And if you're on Twitch, you can use the live stream of SimRacing.GP to go on following the race as well over the whole distance. But please also stay with us because we have so much nice things upcoming over here, and we will also switch back to the race every once in a while. So this is going to be exciting. You can probably see the sim racing rig of TRX over here. There's going to be a presentation later on, but now we start with our next panel. The topic is, are we on the peak of racing simulations? If you have any questions concerning that, please type them on Twitter under the hashtag SRE22. Hashtag SRE22 on Twitter. Type in your questions. We will ask our guests. And talking about our guests, I may introduce them now. I'm super happy to have them here. Steve Worell, CEO of SimRacing.GP, is there. Will show up in a second. Alessio Cicolari, CEO of AK Informatica, and Henning Peets, CEO of TrackTime. And also welcome Stefan Filastre, Head of Brand Licensing and Retail of the FIA. Hi, good to have you here, guys.
Hello.
Hello, please have a seat already. Hi, good to see you. Hello, welcome on stage. Hi, Matze, nice to meet you. Have a seat, please. Exactly. Those four over there are for you. And we just make yourself comfortable. Hopefully you're good.
Very good.
Can you hear me? Not yet, right? Like, yeah, figure that one out. Shall I help you? Is that working? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Also, we have a little bit of a sound on stage. Wait, I'll come around and help you there. Does it work? It works? Okay, good. So, first of all, how are you doing? How do you like Nuremberg?
I love it. I love Germany. It's probably my favourite country. I'd move here tomorrow if my wife would let me, but she won't. So I get to come to cool places like this every now and then. But yeah, very cool.
Okay, nice. You as well?
It's perfect. Life around.
Okay. Please make sure you're always talking to your microphone. Exactly. For you?
Yeah, it's very nice. I'm Italian. I prefer the sun, but you know.
Yeah, of course. I understand that. I prefer Italy as well, like sun-wise. And you?
Yeah, I've been having a weekend full of sim racing. What could be better?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you all been to the Christmas market yet? Not? Yes. Yes, it's a no. It's a no.
No.
Tonight for sure.
Tonight for sure. Okay, good. So I will as well. I will join you probably. We will see each other at the mulled wine stand, I guess. I want this to be not just an interview, but perhaps a discussion if possible, like have a good time on stage together and perhaps like make you guys or prepare a good time for you with some interesting insights and views of yours. And you can also discuss if you're in different opinions, of course. Yes, so since there are always like new faces to the sim racing world, especially in the stream, for example, and also right here on the fair, please would you be so kind to introduce yourself once again and tell about your companies or what you do. Steve.
Yeah, cool. So Steve Worell, CEO of SimRacing.GP. SimRacing.GP is a platform for drivers to come and find races. It's for communities and organisers to create races, and it's also for brands to do esports. So we're currently doing the Logitech G Challenge, and we also were just watching the SimRacing.GP Professional Trophy in collaboration with Kavana as well, and that's all being run on SimRacing.GP. But yeah, it's just a platform for multiple sims for people to come together and enjoy their hobby.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Henning. I'm the founder of TrackTime, a company who builds simulators from entry-level to high-end motion simulators. We are part of the KHW Automotive, who also has the Usher brand and Race Room. So yeah, we are a big family of sim racing companies, and yeah.
So good to have you here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Alessio Cicolari and the CEO of AK Group. So my companies are working mainly on gaming, but especially in sim racing. We are a tournament organizer. So we are the organizer of GT World Challenge, Ferrari Esports, so many others. And yeah, also we create computers and gaming rigs that you can see even here at the exhibition.
Okay, great, thank you. And Stefan?
So my name is not Stefan, actually. We had a change of people
okay,
at the
sorry,
end.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, all good. So my name is Strane. I worked at the FIA now for 2.5 years.
Great.
I don't need to explain what the FIA is, but Basically, I work fully with sim racing, fully with esports, and on the sporting side of the FIA, so we're trying to see what we can do in terms of being a federating body and a governing body when it comes to esports. Looking at the FIA Motorsport Games, for example, is one clear recent example together with Alessio. And yeah, let's see what we can do in the future.
Yes, hopefully it's going to be fine. To see into the future or like watch the actual situation, like it's always good to also regard the past. So on the topic, are we on the peak of racing simulations? My first question is, in your opinion, what have been the most important developments in racing simulations in the last 10 years, for example? So feel free. Would you like to answer?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, one of the most important things in the development of sim racing has been the quality of the software and the quality of the hardware. They've just both come on leaps and bounds. I've been sim racing for 20 years, believe it or not, from a young child racing my first sims. And they've just become more sophisticated and just more enjoyable in that respect. And I think that's one of the things that people, when you're trying to explain sim racing to people outside of the industry, for many years it's been a case of, oh, it's a video game. Yeah, it's not quite a video game. It's like the software is really sophisticated. The real world F1 teams, motorsport teams are using this software to plan strategies and practice and train. And they can only do that if the software is accurate. And now we've got the hardware as well, which is in many cases one-to-one to real life. I mean, Alessio, you were just talking about some pedals which are essentially one-to-one to real life. And the inputs that you're putting in on your controls at home are basically the same as what you're putting in the car. So it's incredibly sophisticated now and still very enjoyable. So,
Would you agree on that?
For me, it's a hardware aspect. I started 20 years ago, and it was always a problem to tell your friends I'm sim racing, and they told you, you're a nerd, you're a gamer, you're crazy. And I was kart racing all my life, became dead, and then suddenly I wasn't able to travel anymore. And so I found sim racing, but it was an Xbox, it was a PlayStation, and I had no feedback of anything. And so I started to look for alternatives. So I started with aluminum rigs. I started with the first direct drives, which I made open sim wheel with Bernhard Berger many years ago. And now everyone has a direct drive wheel. And Martin Ascher was a friend of mine who started the first button plate, who also has now shifters in the real motorsports and now in the McLaren car. So it's so nice to see how sim racing developed over the time and got the acceptance on the market. 10 years ago, I invited friends or different people to my home to show them that I'm not a nerd, that I'm making motorsports in my basement. And now everyone knows sim racing and accepts it. And 10 years ago, it was a niche in the niche.
Could you tell, like what would be the most important developments?
For the future?
No. Now, like in between the last 10 years, because you pretty much mentioned everything.
It's hard to tell. A big thing was the direct drive wheels, because all the gearing and belts that made the feeling cocky and not direct. And I think even the VR glasses made a big step forward to show people how motorsports could look like.
Yes.
You may not use it every day, but to show how motorsport looks like, it's perfect.
Okay.
Even for motion builders like me, who connects motion with steering forces with visuals. It's like a connecting cloud.
Get it. Okay. Alessio, what's your...
Yeah, for me, I mean, the development of the multiplayer, the way now sim racing is connecting people around the world. We manage competition where we have people connected really around the world with very small delays. We can have worldwide competition, and then we have this beautiful place where they can meet in person. During the Ferrari Sport Finals, we had people coming from North America and Europe. One sentence that one of the guys said show what is, for me, the best development. He said, this is the first time for me traveling the world and meet people with my same passion that we normally now group together. So it's not just hardware, it's not just software, it's the way sim racing through multiplayer development allow people to compete and enjoy the sim racing globally. Then there are minor stuff, but this is, for me, the best one.
So would you say that it's not only that it is an online community, but now this community finds together also in the real world somehow?
Exactly, excluding the COVID time that was very bad, but LAN for me especially was always super cool. at the motorsport games, we had the chance also to have the audience cheering for the drivers. One of the drivers was saying, I was literally hearing people screaming when I was overtaking. This is because the sim racing is reconnecting everyone. So networking, multiplayer, for me, is the best thing that sim racing did in the last 10 years.
Also, in terms of attracting the audience, it is pretty similar to real racing, I would say. Like, what was your opinion?
Yeah, no, exactly what Alessio said. I think the number one key is that community spirit and doing things like Steve is doing with SimRacing.GP, just to give people actually a good platform to race on. But I think if you have to point one certain thing out, I think it's just the quality of the graphics, how far they have come. That you thought that things were photorealistic maybe 10, 15 years ago, and then you look at the stuff now, and then you think, what's it going to look like in another 5, 10 years?
Yeah.
And I think that's the first thing that people see when you look at a simulator or you look at a broadcast. It's, wow, the graphics are really good.
In some way, you just answered my first question, concerning your perception of the things. Like this year's FIA Motorsport Games were the first time with Assetto Corsa Competizione. So how did you like the performance of the sim?
It was really good. I mean, when you have a big event like that, you have 20 simulators, you have probably 20 people working on everything, there's lots of tech, there's lots of everything that could go wrong. I mean, in the end, every single thing worked really well. And everyone was very, very happy with the event. I mean, we had drivers being happy, partners being happy, we were happy as FIA. I hope Alessio was happy as well. And in the end, it was all a big success, and there's been lots of good things being said. There's lots of things to improve still, but overall, big thumbs up.
But there you lead exactly to my next question. Like, what would be, if there is something, what would be, blah, blah, blah. Forward, what would be good to improve?
I think from my seat, where I'm sitting when it comes to the sporting side, is to have more robust kind of race control tools and result handling and that kind of thing, where you have a set series of regulations which you need in terms of penalties and all that kind of boring stuff, but to be able to actually implement that directly into the different games, regardless of which one it is, and then you just get an Excel sheet with proper results instead of having to do what we did at the FI Motorsport Games, which was this guy has a 5-second penalty, go into Excel, add 5 seconds, make sure you did it correct, make sure your math is on point, and just doing that kind of stuff, I think would, from a sporting integrity side of things, would really, really make things even better.
Okay, perhaps giving that back to Alessio, I guess, would be perfect person to answer.
Yeah, I would love also this kind of tools, because normally now we do everything manually. But these are improvements that we are suggesting to publishers, to developers on the new games, because if you think that, for example, Assetto Corsa 1 was made when no big competition was made, so now all the software we develop that connect to the game that can do a lot of stuff in the future, that now it's required to have a proper tools for FIA, for us, for results, stewarding, whatever. It's really needed. We have better tool than in real life sometimes, because for a steward, just looking at an action is way better than just in the cameras, even if we have new tools on the cars and stuff. But if I can say what needs to be improved in the future, for sure, it's to get more into this new metaverse stuff, integration, collaboration between publisher. I mean, I would love also to have more FIA involved in all the big activity, at least. I'm not saying just the community, but there are a lot of competition running right now, and the community is big. We need really, like in the real life, we have an official entity that is basically on it, and as organizer, then we can rely all together on the same, at least base regulation, ranking and stuff that we were talking before, even with Steve about that, is a common issue we have. So I'm not talking just about hardware and stuff. The hardware and graphics we develop until they will look like real. You know, if you ever tried VR, right now it's still improving. Now we are lacking on hardware because the display are not that good still, but the software is coming. So we will have a lot of AI, metaverse, NFT integration that I would love to have in SimRacing.
Okay, I see you guys like willing to answer. Yeah, just go.
I cannot tell much about software because I'm a race room guy, but I do not make events. That's my colleague Holger who's responsible for that. but I'm a hardware guy, and VR is really good at the
Microphone.
moment. When you look for the Vario glasses, I don't know, have you seen them already?
Yeah.
The resolution is insane. It's
Excuse
so
me,
high.
But
you
it's
have
not.
to
It's
take
not.
care of the microphone.
It's not
Okay.
really so high right now. It's still lacking a little
Yeah.
bit. So it's not like your eyes. No, it's it's a term of, let's say, dot pitch between the different pixel in the hardware. So I work a lot with Samsung and with other brands that are making displays. So it will improve for sure compared to the first Oculus Rift that they had. This is insanely good.
Have you tried the Vario one?
Not yet, but
Do it.
Have a look.
It's
I will.
new level.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're
Okay.
working with them, and it's insane. It's too good, not nearly.
Question that we discuss later is if we have reached kind of the ceiling over there, or if you believe in there might be some further improvements. But first of all, you just mentioned that you would like to have also a more intense communication with the FIA, for example. Is the FIA willing to like increasing this communication and like working on it? And
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sim racer myself, and so my purpose with this job is to actually, what can we do with sim racing? How can we structure it, and how can we actually put this logo more into what sim racing is? Because there's a huge potential. There's lots of, I mean, you have a really, really low barrier to entry, but you can also have a super duper high level. And so for our side, I think from a governing body and a sanctioning body, it's super interesting to see how can we develop into this different discipline of motorsport. It's still a motorsport. 110%.
It is.
But the question is, it's different in a lot of ways from other disciplines. So what can we do there? But absolutely, I mean, it's a day-to-day job. Is how can we actually get involved from the regulation side, from the official side, from the training side, from licenses, structure, ranking, like Alessio was saying. All of that stuff is really, really interesting, and it's the end target for sure.
do you have any ideas on that, or already? Not really. No, it's hard. I think those are the things that need to be discussed, obviously, of course, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that is going in future. So, main focus of sim racing seems to be in the competition and esports, but it's also, I think, very important not to lose track of the other elements, like as we already scratched on AI and immersion, for example. So, how is your perception on that?
AI is an interesting one. I think, like Alessio said, multiplayer has become so important now. I feel like AI. You're referring to AI as in the other cars on track, yeah, right? So, it's an interesting one because I think there is still a place for offline play, but it's kind of just a single player. I think the multiplayer aspect of sim racing is what brings us all together. It's really, I think, why we're here. And I think it kind of gets left behind a little bit, the offline play, but it's still a good entry point for people, right? It's still a nice way to get up and running. I think a lot of the games like F1 obviously use AI, but when you get to the more sort of hardcore simulations, it could serve a purpose for training perhaps and practice, but yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to develop, actually, the AI. I think it might actually, we might see it just all fade away completely. I'm not entirely sure.
What do you think?
I see it only as a training tool for beginners who are shy and not brave enough to go to a server where very many good drivers are already.
Yeah.
And
Is that a diss?
yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So it's the same for me. When I'm not in training and I'm going back to the iRacing service or something like that, I try the new car offline.
Yeah.
So
Of course.
that's the way to do it.
Just getting in touch with everything and
when my times are good, then I go on the online server. And with AI, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are working in different projects with AI. Cannot tell much more, but we are, let's say, using it as a training tool for sure, and also using esport and gaming to improve AI on the real vehicles. Because you can imagine how many hours a machine can use for deep learning on sim racing, and then use in a safe way a training for an AI that can actually drive a car or use additional help to you driving. Because if the AI will be so good to understand the way you drive and the way you can do and the car can do, it can take over before you make a mistake. And not like now that is taking over when it's already done. The ABS, the traction control, is taking action when it's already too late or almost too late. So we will announce shortly a very nice project together with the guys of a very big, say, corporation doing autonomous competition. But yeah, it's a spoiler.
Okay.
No, but I think that point of immersion and mass participation, like you said before, it's like when people start sim racing, maybe they don't want to join a server immediately and risk being run off in turn 1 at Monza, as we may have all been at some point in our lives. And you actually go on and you start with AI and you start learning and getting better and better and better. I think that's almost the most important part, to make sure that the accessibility is there and it's really easy and enticing for people to get into, because if we don't have that mass, we won't have the elite. So you really need to make sure that you really focus on that bottom wide part of the pyramid in order to be able to develop further up as well.
Yeah, and AI is not just another car. You can imagine in the game when you put the idle line, it's something fixed. It's designed in the game. But if AI is dynamically telling you where to go, when to brake, and for having the best optimal on the track condition and stuff, it will be a good training tool for everyone. No? For sure.
As a training tool, I think it's super. But do you think like it would be, somehow good to implement AI too much into like real racing, or to avoid, for example, like you said, to avoid accidents, because it's all about the mistakes of the drivers as well, like to compare them and to be like the best. The best will be like who makes the least mistakes, and if the AI overtakes that.
No, I was saying just for a normal car, not for racing. For racing, I would love to see people crashing into each other. Yeah,
motorsports.
Well, probably not crashing into each other.
Not crashing, but you know
yes.
what I mean.
Okay, so getting back to a little bit like perhaps from your perspective, not too important, but still, from my perspective as a beginner, very important parts of sim racing, something like the sound, for example. How about the sound development? Is it important to you, or do you think there's some improvements to do in the future, or do you think like we can leave it like that? Because also, not only the cars sound different, but also the racetracks, for example, give a different, feedback on the ears somehow.
I think it goes back to the immersion point.
Yeah.
The more immersive you can make the experience, the better. And sound is obviously, after graphics, I would probably say it's the second most important thing. So sound, making sure that the sound is actually genuine and sounds realistic, I think is super duper important, for sure.
It's already like really good, right? I remember, Alessio, we were at Monza for SRO 2019. ACC, hearing that for the first time, and we were right next to the pit lane. I was like, the cars are out on track already. And it wasn't, it was ACC. And I was like, oh my God, it sounds really good. And Race Room, of course, also has, is famous for the sound.
But you can tweak it. When you're now the real race car, you can shift the levers. And in the real race car, the wind and the tire noises are much more loud than the motor noise when you adjust it right.
Yeah.
Only the adjustment could be much more better when you can reach this.
To
adapt it to real motorsports.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the like I say, Race Room is again famous for the sound, and that's not to say it's at its peak or whatever. Is that it can't improve? I'm sure it can. There's again, AI is a technology, like coming at AI from a different angle. There's machine learning that can be applied on all sorts, and sound. I don't see any reason why not. They're taking all of these samples and this data from across YouTube or mic recordings to make optimal sound. Who knows? But it's already really good.
Yeah.
And don't forget that there are all inputs for the driver. So it's not just like a beautiful landscape on the screen. So if the sound is not just good, but it's also giving you information like sliding of the wheels or strange noise behind. So it's something that gives you more input to be a better driver.
Yeah, try it. Turn off the sound and try to drive. It's not possible. If you don't hear the motor, you're dead.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I believe so. But do you think that there can be like improvements in the future, or have you something in mind of which could be like improved somehow? Yeah. Or do you say
over or sound or anything else? You mean?
Well, now we're talking about sound, but if you want to bring up something else, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think every aspect of what we're doing can be improved. I don't think any of the developers are sat there thinking we've made the perfect product. There's always something that can be done, and yeah, I'm really excited to see what's coming out in the next couple of years with new games on the horizon. What new innovations they're going to bring, right? And yeah, I think it's. I genuinely think we're just at the beginning of this. There's been the boom through COVID, and we've been but we've been playing these games and enjoying sim racing for years. But we really are at the beginning of this, and it's just. I can't imagine what they're going to come up with as new innovations.
Okay.
For me, there are two things. First, that the software developers have data for the hardware producers, so we get information about pedals, travel ways, limiters, forces, everything, that we can get this data and adapt it to intelligent hardware and use it so that it feels real.
So improve the communication between software and hardware developers somehow.
Like we get more data from the software side. So I know from which car the steering range is perfect and which pedal travel is perfect, and first time on the
no worries.
on this one. So it would be perfect to get more data that we can play with and that we can use, because it would make adjusting the simulators much easier for the customers.
Okay, I get it.
If we know the pedal force, for example, we don't need to put in different rubbers or springs. If there are motor-driven pedals like SimCube uses now, and the software is telling us what we have to adjust them, that it feels right,
would make things
perfect.
Way easier or perfect. Yes.
Yeah, talking about audio, like graphics, there's still improvement. Now we are still working on samples that are triggered when something happens. But as Steve was saying, with AI, it can be flexible. AI now is able to make song based on what the machine learned. So basically, we can have this improvement for sure, and then it comes to hardware, where proper headset, better sound system. The peak is not reached for sure. For other kind of technical stuff, that is still way to improve. Like in the real vehicles, we have still in the simulator. So that is not limit right now, in my opinion.
Probably never is going to be a limit, like with the development or like growing of techniques, which we probably don't know yet. Like that's probably obviously something that can improve always. Let's talk about the realism. Like racing simulators these days are already very realistic, and it's also because of the feedback of real drivers. So how important was or is this feedback still, and how will you improve it somehow?
Don't know, because I'm not a real racing driver. But one thing that I hear that comes up a lot, and just talking about data that comes back, is how some like the tire manufacturers, how like secretive they can be about the properties of their tires and stuff. I think that's going to be something which I don't know if we're ever going to get that data. The developers are going to get that data that they need. But I know from what I've heard, like the Dave Perel, for example, with the Assetto Corsa Competizione, was had a big impact on the or fed back a lot into that game and how the cars should feel. And I think that's now just commonplace. If you're developing a game, you're getting a driver in to say, look, how does this feel? And Aris, again, at Kunos, he races cars, and he does the physics, and he races cars, and he knows how this stuff should feel. So, I think it's just part and parcel now that if you're building something, you bring a driver in to feedback.
So yeah, I mean, I work a lot on this side of things with feedback from the real drivers, but for the manufacturers, for the Fanatec Sport Pro Series we have the real drivers competing in the simulators before the races. So I heard a lot of feedbacks. I mean, the first issue that the publisher has right now, the developers, is that officially the car manufacturer is not giving real proper data of the cars. Because, you can do engineering on that, so a competitor can see actually the data. So there is a lot of IP to be protected. So let's say the data they receive is just basically softened. So it's not really the physics of that car. Unless you have a different kind of simulator, like training simulator, then the physics is different. I know also when working with Dallara on their model, we develop, and the physics are one-to-one, or the one is different even to drive. So the feedback of drivers, okay, but it's not actually like my car. The tire is not the same. This is not the same, but it's something that the poor artist cannot do alone, just testing the car. Because when it comes to road cars, it's okay, but GT cars is impossible to test outside. So the feedback of drivers is really important, because we cannot expect that the manufacturer will send proper data all the time because of the reason we just said. And we are approaching, say, a time where mostly all the real drivers are also sim driver right now, no? So even in F1, so the feedback will become very more important, let's say like that.
Okay, so do you think these two sports in a way will merge at some point and be one sport?
Well, I think it's inevitable. I mean, we spoke about this yesterday or whenever it was. I think, you've got these beautiful cars here that in 2035 you're not going to be able to buy a car like that because it's going to be electric.
Yes.
And then put another 10 years on that, another 15 years on that, it's going to be automated, right? So it's going to be an automated drive. And the only way you're going to be able to experience this drive is either on a racetrack or in a virtual world.
Yeah.
So I think it's not, in my opinion, I don't think it's a chance. I think it's inevitable that the two come together in a marriage.
Could you?
But I think they have to develop separately at the same time. Whereas you don't start pushing them together just for the sake of doing it either. So that you can, motorsport is motorsport and it's existed for hundreds of years and will keep existing. But that you take the sim racing and esports and make sure that it can develop into something proper itself, so that it doesn't just become okay, you're good in a rig, let's put you in a cart and then forget about the sim racing stuff. Because there's still a lot of potential to develop the sim racing part of it as well.
Sure, of course. But at the same time, could you like maybe aside that, think of a combined championship or something like that, like a real
already exists.
We already have, and we created last year with Thomas Schickemeyer, Fanatec, and GT World Challenge, where, as I said, we started back in 2019 also with Steve.
Yes.
It was just with sim driving at that time, but we showed that doing parallel championship with the competition is something good, and it was good. Then 2020, we had just the online series, we had a lot of big drivers join, like Leclerc, Baton, and many other GT drivers. And 2021, we decided to have this mixed championship with the regulation approved by FIA. So because the drivers take points in the championship and prize pool together. So we built this arena inside the paddocks. It's a big arena with up to 30 simulators. And there is a competition for 1 hour. Obviously, we cannot do the 24 hours, but it was interesting to mix the two things and how the teams changed the way of approaching sim racing in those 2 years. So the first year was like, okay, we have to do it, we do it. Now we have meeting with teams like WRT and others, with drivers give you feedback. And as Eric was saying, it doesn't need to be for sure the same thing. I mean, esport has got more potential than motorsport somehow because we don't have physical restriction. So we can develop new stuff that with the cars we cannot.
Yes.
So the mixed thing is already exist, and the Fanatec Esport Pro Series is the first one in the world, including all the other esports, because we need to remember that sim racing is the only esport that is really like the real one. You play FIFA, you're not really playing with your feet. So it's the only one that can compare between the two. And,
yeah. I was also thinking of that on a even bigger scale, like FIA improved, and perhaps with like TV and everything, like in a real league and a. You know what I mean? So can you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I was saying, is that kind of stuff is growing, and there's more and more interest from promoters, from manufacturers, from teams, from drivers, from us as well. I mean, we want to see and explore those kind of ideas. What can we do? I think the biggest challenge right now is to how can we actually regulate it properly, and how can we govern it properly? Because then you introduce potentially where you can have a championship be decided by an esports competition, and you really need to make sure that it's super waterproof. There cannot be any holes in that case, and it really needs to be tight. And I don't think we're there yet, but I think that's where we can be. In give it a couple of years, and I think we can be. And like Alessio was saying, the SRO GT World Challenge has been a really good example of it. And yeah, I think there's going to be more and more of that moving forward for sure.
How many years would you estimate?
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Before Christmas.
Sorry?
Before Christmas.
Before Christmas, yeah, exactly. That's I like your ambition. 2-3 years, maybe. I think. I mean, as this in terms of sim racing and esports grows and gets more and more popular, there will be more push for it. So I'd say maybe give it 2 or 3 years, and hopefully we can be somewhere very cool.
Yeah. Concerning that, the FIA Motorsport Games are a one-off event, once a year or every 2 years. Can you consider or think of a I don't know, regular high-profile esports series in the near future to highlight the wider reach and professionalism of sim racing?
I mean, I think in terms of, I was speaking about this with Alessio before, what we thought during COVID was, what should we do now? Should we put on our own FIA World Championship esports series? There's no point for us to do that because there's already such a well-established community with lots of people doing such a great job. There's no point in us trying to create a competitor to those competitions. So I think from our side, what makes more sense is that we can go in and we can offer the sporting structure, and we can offer the legitimacy that comes with, and the officialing and all that kind of stuff. And start certifying competitions instead of organizing separate ones. The FIA Motorsport Games is a bit of a special one, obviously, but I think, there's definitely interest for us to see what we can do moving forwards. And in terms of certifying competitions, championships, one-off events, it's definitely it's in here. It's already in there.
Yeah. Thank you for that perspective, of course. Are you willing to say something? Because
No, I think it's interesting. I think, for people to be able to pick up a framework and work from a set of guidelines to put on consistent tournaments, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think if you just look at some of the esports competitions over the last year, the inconsistency between decisions is a tricky one, right? It's like no one gives their referee a handshake, meaning at the end of a football match thinking, oh, great game, right? It's always a problem with the referee. And I think with sim racing at the moment, we're all working with different ideas and different rule sets and stuff. So I think, the idea of a community or an esports organizer being able to work from a framework, I think is going to be good.
So this might be a very important topic, but overall, what do you think are the most important steps, in your opinion, that racing simulations need to take over the next 5 to 10 years to be at constantly high level or even improve the level?
Yeah, I can say that is what Eric said. So what I would like is to have a consistent race direction that is important for everyone, because I can jump between one of my competition, Virtual Le Mans, F1, whatever, but I would love to have same kind of decision. If in GT racing, an overtake must be done like this or not, need to be the same for everyone. And it brings to have global standings, sporting regulation that can be the same. Then the championship itself can be different, but the baseline of the regulation should be the same for everyone. And I think it's something I was discussing with Eric like this, and as organizer, we are keen to help to develop this, because obviously it's a thing that all the organizers will take advantage. And for the technical part of sim racing, I'm not saying anymore, because there are a lot of improvement year by year. So I didn't know even about the new VR set, so we tried pedal set, wheels. It's all evolving.
Okay. You wanted to say something as well, or
I was going to basically say
the
same thing, because I think in terms of the sporting side of things, to provide that sporting integrity and the governance, and to have an independent adjudicating body to actually take that role, I think is important for the sake of integrity. But then in terms of actual content, it sounds simple, but just making sure the content is up to date, because that's what people like. When there's a new hypercars being released, then people want to drive them in the sim so that they can come out that quickly. It's a lot of development work and tracks and whatnot, but I think those two things are probably the most things I would focus on.
Yes.
For me, it's getting more beginners in the hobby, because there are many friends of me who don't know sim racing. Even they know motorsports, they don't know that we have something like that we live here. That we have something like we have here.
Yeah.
They don't know sim racing, and we have the work to do to make it public, more simple, more public, more reliable.
Yeah.
So I'm a hardware producer of high-end simulators. Okay, but we need it simpler. When you go to the Expo, it's very hard for a beginner to be motivated, because you see all the nice, shiny, expensive rigs. And maybe it's hard for them to believe.
So lower the hurdle in a way to just get into the sport.
Like in motorsports, that the good old Breitensport in German, I don't know the English word.
Yeah.
That we find kids in the local sports clubs or in the town halls to attract them to the hobby.
This is what
having more simulation center, for example, might help.
Perhaps that is nice. That would be nice. It's also something what I think like sim racing is lagging of some local aspect of it all. Do you think like local teams would be, so for example, an option, because like everybody's teaming up all over the world because it's so online, right? Do you think, like, perhaps also from the FIA perspective, that would be a good thing? Like make a regulation that teams can only be built in a certain region or area or something like that?
I think it's very dangerous because while it can be very helpful, the risk is that you start over-regulating. And then you get into that typical problem where you start creating hurdles rather than creating solutions. But I think that something that would help even more is we're a member-based federation. So we have 146 sporting member clubs around the world. Whether it's Motorsport UK or the DMSB in Germany or whatever it could be. And I think getting those national sporting clubs to start getting involved on a national level would also help, like you said, to help this mass participation part, to promote it locally in the correct language and correct culture and correct way, so to say, and to really get more people into it. And then, as the point was very correctly made, when you get more people in, you get a wider base, and then you can funnel people up and up the ladder as you go.
Yeah, find talents, local talents. And the idea should be to have a local sports club who has a simple simric standing there with a educator, with a trainer who looks for talents.
Yeah.
Who's motivated, 8 years old, 7 years old.
Great
Maybe
idea.
with sponsors from the town who could present their name on the simulator, but to find talents.
Yeah, I need to promote better the simulation center, because still in Europe, some countries like Italy, it's famous to have over-regulation of everything, and it's hard really to open a simulation center in Italy because of the regulation that is not really taking care of esport, but is taking care about gambling and other stuff. But for I don't know what reason they are like mixing stuff. So if we imagine to have like a simulation center every big town where who is not able to pay a rig, even if it's entry level, you have to pay at least 5,000 for a simulation rig, and not everyone has the chance. I have a gaming, an esport palace, so basically it's an esport center where we have a lot of people coming and try the simulators, or much more than the other computers to play Fortnite or Call of Duty. So, and there is where the community starts physically. And the community, the other end, is helping throughout the creation of smaller competition, because obviously if we have F1 eSport, GT World Challenge and stuff, we always know that we'll have Baldwin, Tonizza and the others, and if I'm just a beginner, I cannot compete. So the ranking then, it will help to have this separation. So in the real motorsport, you have the pro, you have the silver, you have a lot of, let's say, categories that helps gentlemen drivers like maybe I can have to compete and not be the last one, but I can be the first of my class. Yeah. So
also a good thing. Would it be also perhaps a possibility to team up, like as developers or platforms, for example, like to build somehow a sponsorship for those like centers, and say like, okay, let's use this fair over here to just talk about something like that, or bring up the idea and make a WhatsApp group or something, and just think of it like to improve the sport. Would that be a good thing?
It'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, if end state vision for SimRacing.GP, let's say that we have sim racing centres all connected on the platform using an FIA framework for regulations. I mean, yeah, that'd be absolutely awesome. The other component, which I think maybe we missed on that last question, is that how I don't think people have to necessarily be racing to engage with sim racing, right? You see, like Jarno Opmeer and his audience is pretty youthful, let's say, and I dare say a lot of those aren't actually racing in a rig. They might be racing on a console, perhaps, or they might just be enjoying the content. And I think that's another entry point into sim racing, which I think may be overlooked, because we've for years not been able to create the heroes in the sim racing industry like we have in real world motorsport. last couple of years, it's started to happen, and I think that's going to just continue to grow.
Nice. Did you want to say something, because you were like nodding the whole time? Okay, good. So I think that is also a very good idea, and I basically want to thank you guys for being so creative and so like into the topic and discussing it so vividly. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think you came up with really good ideas also for the future, and your perception of the actual situation was really nice to get to know and to learn. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. I almost forgot that we have a race going on. Thank you for being here on stage. And guys, now I guess we're just popping over to Alex and Paul and have a look at the race at this very moment. Enjoy, guys.